I'm Chris Newton, creator of Feed, the Vampire Mythos RPG. In 10-Minute Mythos, I prove the endless possibilities of vampire role-playing by taking one random inspiration and using it to sketch out an original vampire mythos, all in 10 minutes. No prep, no script, just one gamer who loves a good vampire story. Wish me luck. Welcome to 10-Minute Mythos. As you know, I am of course working on Feed, the Vampire Mythos role-playing game, but I still have time to get sucked into other systems from time to time. This happened to me just yesterday. I spent all day reading the Doctor Who game from Cubicle 7, which I just got, and the Time Traveler's Companion. And one of the things I really liked about it, among many others, is that it's got all these fiddly bits. It's got all these little like cards, and it's got detailed sheets you can fill out. Like I have a TARDIS console sheet here. You can see there's so much detail on this. You get to place all your systems and like figure out where the damage to the different systems has gone. You get to write down all these different traits and fill in all these little buttons and stuff. I feel like it's a joy of role-playing that's sometimes lost as you mature as a gamer, and oftentimes you move into more narrative kind of stuff, tend to move towards simpler systems in some cases. You lose that initial joy of role-playing, of filling in the little boxes and adding up all the points. So today's 10-Minute Mythos is about how to add some fiddly bits to Feed, a campaign that would support that. So the first thing about Feed is that it already has some pretty cool sheets, I think. It's got the group tracking sheet, which is a way to easily keep track of everyone in the group for the GM and how their characters are progressing. And it's got these little like stress bubbles on it so that you can see when traits are being stressed. So it actually helps you keep track of subplots. Like if a character is kind of like straining a relationship with an NPC almost to the breaking point, you can see the progress of that and you can track everyone really easily in that way. There's a phase at the end of the session to keep track of all that stuff. So I've already got, I think, some narratively cool kind of paperwork for you, sheets that help you track all that stuff and bring something to the game. However, I was thinking about adding even more. So in addition to the character sheet and the group tracking sheet, what else could you add? And especially something that feels fiddlier and is like a little less, more like something that's in the fiction, as opposed to tracking the narrative progress. From like a storytelling perspective, like what's going on with these characters. So I had this idea. The idea, I call it Fetch. So this is a kind of like a sub. Like a campaign for Feed. And the idea is that you play basically homunculi, sort of. You're artificially created creatures made from human and other animal parts who have some semblance of a memory of what it is to be human, but you're mostly these like alchemically constructed components. And so you need blood. The form is basically unstable, and the blood is needed just to kind of keep it going. And also the creature has this bestial nature that basically is just kind of like a glutton for constant, for blood. They're created to serve their masters. And so in this game, with under these rules and in this kind of campaign, the compulsion rules, which normally just have vampires hungry for blood, make them both hungry for blood and prone to obey human beings. They're created as subservient creatures who are sort of dominated by their hunger. They can't survive on their own. They need human blood, and they're created to obey. They're created as servants. So in contrast to the normal Feed campaign, where you typically would start as someone more human and edging toward vampirism, which is not required in most campaigns, but certainly would be the baseline assumption for like the classic vampire story. In this case, you're starting with almost all vampiric traits, almost all red traits on that 16-point like front character sheet, with just one or two representing parts that were used to create the homunculus that have some, they give it some humanity. So you may have a heart or a brain or a pair of eyes or something like that from a human that kind of come with like that little teeny spark of soul. And because the way Feed works, where you can only use human traits to resist compulsions and hunger and temptation, your only chance to resist the orders that are given to you by humans, and your only chance to resist kind of glutting yourself on blood at every opportunity, is that little bit of humanity that's in you by virtue of the human parts used to make you. So the course of the game is you're trying to free yourself. And you're trying to go out and actually get new parts, rebuild yourself alchemically using new parts that make you more human and therefore more resistant, and you can gradually build yourself into a human. To me, this seems like kind of a dark fairy tale sort of idea. So my thought is to set this in basically the homunculi would be sort of contemporary with the Brothers Grimm, but it would be in a sort of semi-fantasy setting. My idea here would basically be alchemy is capable of doing the things that it was reputed to do with like a little touch of fairy tale. But that's about as far as it goes. So, like, there would be witches, but they wouldn't be, tossing fireballs around or anything like that. It would be like, they're capable of creating potions. They're capable of little, incantations that can maybe give them some visions, that sort of thing. So you're living in sort of like a fantasy, medieval, Germanic kind of situation. And alchemists there are the ones who created the homunculi, who then typically go out to like prey upon humans and bring their parts back for their masters. You're now playing homunculi who have a spark of self-awareness and are trying to use their modular form, their ability to attach new pieces to themselves, to build themselves up into something more like a human being, and be able to resist the master. So there's a little bit of My Life with Master in there. There's a little bit of Promethean in there, but that should not prejudice you against this idea. So for the vampire traits, my thought is to use these as kind of like sockets. When you have a vampire trait, that means that basically this is a place on your homunculus where it can be improved and built onto, and it can use like supernatural ability, superhuman ability more precisely, because this would be the place to put on like multiple human parts or human parts that are mutated or twisted in some way, or animal parts or whatever, that would give you then your final traits, which would be, this is where the fiddly bits come in, recorded on a sheet that would show your homunculus's like basic body form, which you could then append things onto. So like you have your little basic body, and then sort of like humanoid shape surrounding it, and it would show you where you can attach stuff on, like what parts of your creature can have add-ons, which you would then go out and find, and you'd actually have a list of different kinds of limbs that can be created and different kinds of appendages and what they do in a superhuman way. Like, do they give you the ability to like climb walls like a spider, or do they give you the ability to, for example, like lay an egg of some kind of creature, like any kind of weird thing you can think of? Do they make you poisonous? And then they would be not only physical, but also, because they're spiritual and professional or public traits in feed and all that sort of thing, you'd also be able to get the spiritual aspects of creatures, and you would also be able to develop relationships. And this is, again, where the fairy tale kind of thing comes in. If you consume a part of a child, for example, by attaching it to you, you would develop an affinity for that child's parents, perhaps, and vice versa. So again, this is like a weird fairy tale situation where, like, the monster that took your child's heart, the monster now loves the child, and the child now loves the monster, or the parent now loves the monster. So you're turning yourself into a human by taking these parts of different human beings, or potentially you would go out and take pieces from animals and other homunculi and stuff like that to make yourself a stronger supernatural presence as a stopgap to kind of building yourself into humanity. There's no definite directionality here. Some homunculi would be more interested in making themselves human than others. Some of them would just want to kind of make themselves weirder and more powerful in other ways. So what you'd have is a big sort of like treasure in this game would be alchemical formulae for creating new parts. And they would have specific requirements. You would need certain pieces from certain things. So that's part of where the name fetch comes from. The fetch is sort of like what this creature is. It's a strange artificial creature. Fetch is also it's sort of like a little thing about these being pets. They're sent to do the bidding of an alchemical master, and so their life is really about like, fetch me the dainty pinky of a virgin, and then the homunculus goes out and does it because it has to, because that's its nature. But then as it's out in the world, it realizes that a little bit of it is human, and there could be more if it adds on more stuff, that it has some spark of free will. And then the third meaning is fetch quest. Basically, this is a spiritual awakening through fetch quest, because when you get the ingredients for a piece, like if you're looking over your master's notes and it's like, the power to love, perhaps, comes from, 4 broken hearts, then you can go as a homunculus, you've got that recipe, you can go scavenge 4 broken hearts, and then use the blood that you've consumed to kind of fuse them into a new part to put in your homunculus, which now gives your homunculus the ability to actually love. So you have to go out on a fetch quest in order to spiritually and physically enhance your homunculus, who becomes more and more human, so that by the end game, you've bought off these vampiric traits and traded them for human traits at a certain point. So you've still got some strange parts on you, but you're starting to look more and more like a human. You can start to integrate into society. You have more free will. You're start to be able to form normal relationships, which could end up making it more and more distasteful to you to start getting the parts that you need to complete the transformation. So there's a lot of different directions this could go, and I feel like the fairy tale feel would actually really help to enhance the deeper aspects of the game. Like there are definitely moral quandaries that could come up, and strange situations, and kind of an introspection of like, who am I? What am I becoming? Because it's not set up to take quite so seriously. It's fetch quests in a fairy tale world, so that you can then kind of sneak in the really detailed kind of storytelling stuff. So I didn't really talk about the sheet much. My time is up. I didn't talk about the sheet much, but I think the sheet would be really cool. I think it would be great to have, like an arm slot, or an upper limb slot, and be able to fill it with whatever claw or tentacle or second head that you want to put in there, and be able to fill them. Like, I have this many pieces, therefore I can have this. So that is the fiddly bit I was imagining, but I spent more time really describing the story, which is fine because I actually like this idea. So fetch. This is one I will probably end up playing sometime, and I might even generate the sheet for it and post it up here at some point. So anyway, there you have it. Fetch. And do check out the Doctor Who game from Cubicle 7. It's quite good.